So welcome to another video on bearing. We're looking at reverse bearing. So we've discussed in the last time we talked about how to locate compass and to understand what to understand about compass bearing and 3-digit bearing. But today we want to look at bearing like location of a point. But like in reverse bearing, it's a type of bearing where you like locate a particular point from another point. For example, so if we have a point A here, so this is point A. Now, from point A, we can determine the bearing of B. Say we have an angle. So we have an angle here, from here to here. This angle determines the bearing of B, which is going to be here. So it tells us exactly what the bearing of B will be. And from B, we can also tell the bearing of A. We can also tell that if we have an angle from here, from the north to this point, it will give us this angle here. That is just the idea of reverse bearing. So from A, we'll be able to say that if we have an angle here, a supposed angle here, we're able to get the bearing of B here, of another point B here, in terms of B here. But we also know that if we have drawn an angle from here to here in B, we'll be able to tell the bearing from A. So that is what we'll be working on basically. So here's a question on that. So let's say the bearing of let me write this. The bearing of, let's say, B from A is 060 degrees. So this is a 3-digit bearing. Now, what is the bearing of A from B? This is the whole idea of bearing. We'll be discussing. Bearing of these from these, this from these. That's what we'll be discussing. So from the idea I gave to you, you'll be able to see that they've already given us the bearing of B from A, which is 60 degrees. So if you want to draw it, let's use another page to see. If you want to draw it, you already know that this is the bearing of B from A. So this is the bearing of B from A. So that means this will be A. So from A, that's what we're talking about. So this will be A. So the bearing of B, which we do not know yet, so let's just put B here. The bearing of B is 60 degrees. So we're going to draw it. So what I mean we do not know is the diagram. So from there, 60 degrees. So that means 60 degrees is the first quadrant, which is at this point here. So we're going to say this here, which is 60 degrees, gives us a bearing of B. So we'll just put something here like this. This is the bearing of B. So from A, we're able to tell that this here is the point where the bearing of B will be. Okay? Now, but the question is, what is the bearing of A now from B? So if you are at point B, how would you know the bearing of A? So now to do that, you're going to measure from, you're going to think like this. What angle will I be able to form from north to this point? I think that's a way to look at it. So if you look at it from north to this point, what angle will I form so that I can get this particular bearing here? Now, if you look at it like we've been doing from here to here, okay, let me use another pen. So from this point to this point is 180, right? So that means this point here is 180 degrees. Well, what is this point? This angle here. If you remember from your knowledge on angles, this 60-degree here is alternate to this point here, this angle here. Meaning that this point here is also 60 degrees. So you know alternate angles, you know that, right? So if you have points like this, alternate angles, these are alternate angles. So if this is 60 degrees, this will be 60 degrees. So now this will be able to tell you the total angle from this point to this point. If here is 180, here is 60 degrees, the total angle that will give you this line here will be this addition of these two. So that means the bearing of A from B would be 180 degrees plus 60 degrees, which will give you 240 degrees. So that is the answer. So that is when you want to find the bearing of A from B. So the way I look at it most times is just to tell me, since you have given me the line or the angle of that gives me the bearing of B. So in reverse, I'm going to say what angle will I form to give me back this line here, or this bearing here. So that is what you look for. And you remember your alternate angles in order to add it to this 180 here, and it gives you the total angle that will give this line here, total amount in degrees that give you this line here. Now let's look at another example. So let's go back. Let's temper with this a little bit. So let's say this time they say that the bearing, now this is going to be the opposite of what we did before. So I just hope you still understand the first one. So the bearing this time of X from a point Y is 320 degrees. Okay, you see it's different. What is the bearing of Y from X? Okay, let me write the X properly. Y from X, okay. Alright, so now basically we need to draw our different points. But we need to draw first the bearing of X from Y. Now, how do you really draw these things? I've not really explained that, but how do you really draw these things? Let me delete this. So the question says the bearing of X from a point Y is 320 degrees. So to be able to get the bearing of X and Y, we have 320 degrees. So basically the way you draw it will determine, okay, the angle will determine the way you draw it. So if I want to start, say, okay, because of the value, the angle is from Y, I want to say, okay, I'll put Y here and say, okay, 320 degrees will be somewhere here. You notice that my diagram will not go this way for me to get the value X. So because of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Y kind of like somewhere here because of space. So you notice the angles now determines the way you draw your diagram. So the first thing they said is that the bearing of X from Y is 320 degrees. So that means for you to be able to get the bearing of X, you have to draw like 320 degrees on Y. So from here to here is 180, and here is the point where you can find 320. So you say, okay, here will give me another point, x. So this is y, and this is x. So this is north, south, and this is north, south, and whatever. So this is another point here, right? So now, since we know that this is 320 degrees, this is how we got the bearing of x. 320 degrees of y gives us the bearing of x. But now, the question is, what is the bearing of y now? What is the bearing of y now? From x. So what angle are we going to draw from x to give us this bearing, this line here? If you notice, from the North Pole, this is the angle here. So let me use a different color to represent that. So this is the angle from north that will give us this line. So now, how do we know the angle here? What is the value of this angle here? That is the question they're asking you. What is the value of this angle? There are two ways to solve this. Well, I'm going to be explaining the first one first. Now, we know very well that for us to get this angle here, let's call this angle A, we may have to know the angle here, another angle here. So let me use another color to represent that angle. So we may need to know another angle here. Let's say B. Let's call this B. And to know this angle B, we need to know the alternate angle on this side. Let's also call this one B, because this is alternate to this. And to know B here on this side, we need to say 360 degrees minus 320 degrees. And the reason is because to complete the whole 360, there's a small angle B you have to add to 320 to give you the whole 360. But to get B, you need to say 320 subtracted from 360 to get that small angle B. And that is exactly what we're doing, and this is 40 degrees here. Okay? So basically, if B is 40 degrees, that means here is also 40 degrees. And we know that this whole angle, let me use we know that this whole angle here is 180 degrees, right? So we know that A plus B on this side is equal to 180 degrees. But now we know what B is, which is 40 degrees. So that is equal to 180 degrees. So that means A, which is the angle that we're looking for that forms the bearing of Y, is going to be 180 degrees minus 40 degrees. So that means A is going to be what? A is going to be 140 degrees. I don't know if you get the point. Just take note of this, that when we were solving, we noticed that to get the points, okay, this is the question, so let's follow it from the question first. The bearing of x from y is 320 degrees. So to get the bearing of x, we had to draw on y 320 degrees, and we got this line here, right? And we got this bearing of x. But now they ask us to find the bearing of y from x. And the only way to do that is to find that small angle that will form this bearing. So there's an angle here that will form this bearing. Now, if you represent it again, let me represent it again so that you see exactly what I did. Represent it again. So that is this angle here. And this was this angle here, 320 degrees. But we needed to get this angle which we do not know. But I said that to get this angle, we need to know this angle here. And the reason is because this plus this, the reason because let's say this is A and this is B, A plus B will be 180. And if we know what the value of B is, we'll be able to get the value of A. So how do we know the value of B? That is what we did. We now said from our knowledge, what we did the last time, we know that this B is alternate to this other angle here, which we also call B. So because this is how it looks like. Here, B, B, alternate, right? That's how it looks like. Okay, so now that we know that, we're able to complete this angle here, because we know that what will complete 360 here, since the angle at the point 360 is to add 40 to 320, and we know that it is actually 360 minus 320. That will give us B. So that is 40 degrees. So we got 40 degrees for B, and that means here is 40 degrees for B. And since we already have this equation, we can just put the value of 40 degrees here equals to 180, and then we have A equals to 140. Well, we bring 40 to this side and subtract. So that is one way to find the value of A, or that angle. Okay? But the question is, what is another way we can do it? Maybe a simpler way. Let's see. Is there a simpler way to do this? So let's see. Let me clean this off. So the question is actually like this, right? Okay, let me clean this off. Okay, we were able to get this angle here. Why am I drawing this wrong? Okay, so this was y, this was x. We were able to get 320 here in order to get the bearing of y, of x here. Now, to be able to get the bearing of y from x is this angle here. Okay, so now another way we can do it is to say that if this is A, that means A is actually alternate to the angle here. So let me put it this way with another color. It's alternate to the angle here. If you look at it, let me draw it well here. So this is A. It's alternate to the angle here. So this is also A. Well, how do we know this part? So we know, first of all, that from here to here is 180, right? Angle on a straight line. That means 180 plus A will give you this 320, because this is 320 is from here to this mark here of the bearing. So let's say A plus 180 will give you 320. So that means that A is equal to 320 minus 180, which will give you 140 degrees. And since A is 140 degrees here, A here is also 140 degrees. And that's the answer. Is it that easy? Like it's so easy. If you understand this point, maybe you can use this method. But if you want me to repeat it, you can also tell me that. But if you do not understand it, you can also ask question. But let me just repeat it a little bit. You understand that what we're looking for is the angle, the bearing from x to y. So we are able to get the bearing of x from the 320 degrees here. So we're able to get this bearing of x. Okay. But now we need to know the bearing of y from x. And this is the angle here that forms the bearing, this bearing here of y. So to be able to get this bearing, we will say that this angle here is alternate to this angle here. And we explain it with this. You have something like this. If this is alternate to this. So we will call this A and we'll call this A since they are the same thing. So that means alternate A is equals to A, so basically. Okay, so now that we know this, we now know that A is inside 320 because from here to here is 320. So A is inside 320. So we also know that from this point, 90 degree, from this north to this point here is 180 degrees. So we know that A plus 180 degrees will give us 320 degrees. 320 degrees. And that means that A is 320 minus 180 degrees, which is 140 degrees. So that means A is 140. That means A here will also be 140. And that is the angle that forms this. Okay. So basically, this is how we can find the distance, the reversed bearing. So locating one point from another point using the other point here. We can actually do another example, but I don't think we have time for that. So if you do not understand this part of the bearing topic we're discussing, you can ask question and then we'll explain it. Yeah, but now we'll be moving over to major bearing. We'll be looking at bearing problems, how you can apply cosine and sine rule and find distance and find the bearing of one point to the other.